Well, good afternoon. So glad we could all get here today. I wondered if I could get off the top of the mountain with all this lovely rain. I'm blaming it all on a friend who came to visit me. I said, ever since you showed up, it started raining, so you must be a good talisman. When we take a few moments to sit here together in silence, it's a means of flowing out of ourselves. It's a strange concept to Western ears, Western mentality, to go out of yourself. But you see, it's actually what happens if you're just being still, in such a way that you're not even trying to be still. Because, of course, if you're trying to be still, you flow very much back into yourself. In other words, you get kind of tight and it gets a little awkward and disappointing. But any moment when you're really relaxed, really deeply at ease, there's a natural quietness to it, is there not? You're very much at ease, very relaxed. There's a quietness, and in that quietness, without even recognizing it, in essence, you kind of flow out of your whole familiar way of being. It disappears for a while. It just disappears. And these moments when we're being just very simply, easily at ease, which is what meditation is it not? To be at ease. I think we've all heard so much about meditation that often it becomes anything but being at ease, We're so busy trying to be at ease that there's no time to be at ease. We're struggling too hard, trying too much. It's like trying to fall asleep. It's a good way to stay awake, But to just be quiet is to be at a deep state of ease. Deep state of ease. Very, very simple. And a state of ease where nothing has been resolved, I say that because the mind's tendencies, I'll become at ease at some other moment other than this one, you see, 'cause I have all these things I need to solve or figure out, and so there's really no time to be at ease. I'll be at ease when I get this done, when I get that done, when I figure this out, when whatever it is. So when we're at ease, there's a way that we just naturally flow out of our conditioned way of being. It's to flow out of ourselves. And so in spirituality, there is this deep paradox at the heart of any esoteric form of spirituality. There's a profound paradox, and the paradox that exists right at the heart of this of deep forms of spirituality is that in one way they're trying to help us to flow out of ourselves. You can call it non-attachment. You can call it, as I often do, allowing everything to be as it is. You can call it being in the moment. All that stuff is only accomplishable when you just flow out of yourself. When you just sort of let go in a very simple way, easy way. Or flow out of one's old way of being, one's old habitual patterns, habitual mind states, all the rest. So that's one part of the paradox of spirituality. Of course, often waking up is a profound moment of flowing out of yourself, flowing out of the familiar self as you have known it. To wake up is, the words up, wake up, really could mean the same thing as flowing out, leaving the person you thought you were. It's really the same as flowing out, leaving. The frustrating contradiction in all of this, of course, is the more you try to do it, the more you try to leave yourself behind, the more that you're stuck with yourself. Have you ever noticed? Do you know? There's no way to struggle that leads to the end of struggle. Do you know? The end of struggle is not a goal at the end of the line. It's actually something we either exercise in the present moment or we don't exercise at all. So to awaken is also to flow out of oneself, one's familiar sense of identity. Not to flow out of the reality of you, because that's quite impossible. You can never go in or out of it. You can always go in or out of the recognition of it, but you can't go in and out of the reality of it. And as I said, if you look at many, many types of spiritual practices across many different kinds of teachings, traditions and such, you'll find an almost infinite variety of forms that are trying to help people to be relieved of themselves, to flow out of themselves, to flow out of their habitual way of being. So many of the approaches of spirituality aim at that end. Of course, when that happens, which it always must happen as a spontaneous act, it can't happen as a self-willed act. It has to happen only as a spontaneous act. And when that does happen as a spontaneous act, again, another paradox, when we flow out of ourselves, truly flow out of ourselves, it's the feeling is that the feeling is coming home. That's the feeling. Coming home in a certain sense. Coming home to something that feels quite familiar, but in an ancient sort of way. The other side of the paradox is, of course, its complementary opposites. One is to flow out, the other is to flow back in. It's like breathing. Breathe out, you breathe in. So to flow back in, of course, is an embrace, isn't it? It's an immense embrace of one's entire experience, of one's entire existence. It's kind of a yes. It's a cosmic yes. You can always spot the teachings of flowing out of yourself because they are by and large negative teachings. By negative, what I mean to imply is that they're the teachings that remove things. I am not my thoughts, I am not my mind, I am not this, I am not that, I am not my beliefs. That's a negative approach. It's a way to get, when we let go enough, then consciousness will flow out of everything we've identified with that we hold so dear and real and true. Its complementary opposite is a flowing in. As I said, like it's a breathing in. And just like we often utilize negativity, the Christians call via negativa, in order to awaken, to loosen one's attachments, identifications with things that aren't really real and true. the complement to that is the positive, it's the cosmic feeling of yes, of an absolute embrace of the entirety of your experience, the entirety of your humanity, I guess you would say. All of it all at once. Which also leads to a kind of freedom, does it not? If you ever want to have a taste of being at ease, just say yes to whatever you're saying no to, and you'll immediately feel more at ease. Do you know? Even if you're upset, I'm angry, I'm really pissed off at so and so, you know. Just say yes to it. Okay, I'm really pissed off. Yes. I'll let myself feel that. And immediately, if you let yourself feel it, you feel so much better. You've embraced it. You've taken it in. In essence, you've saying yes to it. It's a secret to, you know, how, what's the popular thing, you know, being in the present moment. It's sort of an Eastern thing. Buddhists love it. Everybody's trying to be in the present moment, you know. As I often say, I'd like to see one person that's ever made it out of the present moment, but nonetheless. But I understand what they're trying to get at, you know. But and so what happens is when you hear a teaching like be in the present moment, then it just evokes your sort of will, doesn't it? Okay, now I'm going to be in the present moment, you know. But being in the present moment, it just means to go from saying no to the present moment to saying yes. As soon as you say yes to the present moment, there's only the present moment. To be missing the present moment is to be saying no to it. I don't mean in your mind necessarily, in your conscious mind. Most people aren't probably sitting there repeating no as a mantra in their mind, you know. I'm very aware of that. I mean, in an unconscious way, in a kinesthetic way, in an emotional way, in a way that your feeling state, in your almost even as a subtle energy state as well. There's many, many people that walk around in their lives. Basically, they're walking no's. You know, they're just walking no's, and anybody can fall into that state at any moment. Do you know when you start to say no to what is? Then you become a walking no at that moment. It can change in the next instant. So the complementary to flowing out of yourself is to flow into yourself. And both of those movements are a type of freedom, and they're also a type of death. Because it's a kind of death to let go, is it not? To let go is, to let go of an object isn't much of a death, but to let go of a cherished idea about yourself or someone else, it's a kind of death. To let go of your entire imagined identity that may be the only one that you know for your whole life. It's the only one you've ever known. To let go of that when it actually starts to happen. I don't mean when it happens in concept and in theory, but when it actually starts to happen, it can feel very much like you're dying or you're going to die. It's sort of a strange, irrational fears can start to arise within you. You don't know why they're arising, you don't know what they're about, but often when you are beginning to really let go, it's not unusual to experience fear, right? Because at some deep level, at a level that's unconscious, but of course you might very much feel it, is that it experiences this letting go as a kind of death. when that letting go occurs, then that which feels like a death is then experienced as a great freedom. A great freedom. Because you were just, of course, letting go of something that wasn't really very significant, very real. To embrace all of experience is also a kind of death. Because you can't have any pretense and embrace the entirety of your experience, whatever it is. You can't be saying to yourself, oh, I shouldn't be feeling that. I shouldn't be thinking that. I should be a better person than I am, do you know? It takes a kind of great humility to really embrace the entirety of one's experience, of one's life. And that's a kind of death too. Because to say yes to one's entire human experience, one's entire humanity, the entirety of your humanity. Do you know what I mean when I say humanity? You know this bundle of skin and bones and tissue that's part of our humanity, one's personal frailty, one's imperfection, in a certain manner of speaking, one's imperfection would be one's humanity. As well as all the good stuff as well, but most people don't have a whole lot of difficulty. Well, that's not really true, is it? A lot of people do have difficulty accepting what's really wonderful in themselves, but that's sort of another story. So a lot of times people that are spiritually inclined, they're sort of almost hooked up in their mind and in the way their aspiration to wake up to a greater reality. That's what spirituality is all about, I suppose. And so there's a way that people that are engaged in spirituality are wanting to find out that reality which is greater than the self that they currently know, or the current reality that they know. That's what they're inclined towards. That's what they're often doing. Maybe because it will make them feel better. Maybe they won't suffer as much. Maybe they want to experience freedom. Maybe they want to experience God. Lots of different motivations. But to flow back into life is something that a lot of times a spiritual sort of personality is much more hesitant to do. Because life itself is a rough and tumble thing, is it not? It can be. It's not only rough and tumble, fortunately. It has lots of beautiful things about it, but it has a quality of being rough and tumble, and life has more edges than one might want to allow. And so this can be a great tendency to unconsciously say no to this moment. No to the way things are. You know? No. Because to say yes is a kind of death. Who would I be if my basic orientation to life was yes? Some of you might even feel the sort of fearful no things that come up. Well, yes, but what about all the things that we're supposed to be saying no to? Do you see? Inequity and and hunger and despair and abuse and violence and hatred and greed and so we have to say no to that. God knows what will happen if we say yes to that. Yeah, you're right. God only knows what will happen if we say yes to that because we've never said yes to that. I don't mean that we make it okay and that we all go out and act like I was going to say animals, but boy, that's really putting a bad thing on animals, isn't it? Most of them behave way better than human beings do, don't you? But you get the point, right? This comes from a very deep distrust of human nature. I think most of us human beings, we have a much deeper mistrust of human nature than we think we do. A much more cynical attitude about human nature than we think we do. That distrust makes it harder to really say yes also. Because if you basically have somewhere in yourself where you don't really trust yourself, you don't really trust in life as a whole, then it's very hard to say yes, isn't it? But of course, everything that we might say no to, we have to remember that we're saying no to what does exist. It doesn't matter if we say no to what. It doesn't matter if we say, no, I don't like it raining. It doesn't matter if you don't like it raining. Apparently, nothing's listening to you. The weather isn't listening to you. The sky, it's just raining. That's all. It's just raining. Saying no doesn't alter anything, doesn't change anything. That's pretty rudimentary. It's funny how you can have that something so obvious, but actually have an orientation where every time it rains you get upset. Just an example, An easy way to state all this is just when you are living in an argument with the present moment, with what's happening, then you're always on the losing end of the argument. Always. The nice thing about it is life is extraordinarily consistent. You never win an argument with it. Never. Not even once. Because it always is exactly what it is. It is what it is. At any moment, this instant is simply what it is. It's neither good nor bad nor right nor wrong. It's simply what it is. And if you argue with it, you lose, which means you get tense, you get upset, you get tight. Same things goes true with the past and the future. You argue with it, you get tense, you get tight, you get upset. That doesn't mean you condone everything that happened in your past. That doesn't even mean you liked it. To say yes doesn't mean you condone something. It doesn't mean that you like it. It just means that you acknowledge what is. That's all that it means. You just acknowledge what is. And if you do it, you feel a sense of lightness. Try it sometime. If you haven't tried it yet, I'm sure plenty of you have tried it. Just yes, that's all. So it sounds very rudimentary, doesn't it? Extraordinarily rudimentary. But if you really start to just kind of examine it, you see how much turmoil is caused by no. As I say, when we sit in this room together and it's quiet, it's silence. If your underlying attitude is yes, I don't even mean that you're saying yes, of course, in your mind, but if your attitude is yes, then it's rather pleasant. If your attitude is no, then it's not so pleasant. It's not so easy. It's a very simple thing. And whenever one comes into a state of clarity, spiritual clarity, that great feeling of flow and simplicity, that feeling of non-resistance, that feeling of being sort of unified inside, do you know? Is because nothing in you is saying no. And so you start to feel and move and act and react as a one whole being. As actually everyone is one whole being.